I have so many thoughts running through my head, and I feel like I haven't done a live stream for ages, but it was just last week. But this last week has been like intense. Oh, that's right, we have an eclipse coming up in a couple of days' time, and I really want to talk about the contraction and expansion of the mother wound. Family, lineage, healings, and systems have been strong as we lead into this total solar eclipse. I want to talk about attachments. I want to talk about sort of random stuff, but I feel like it's all connected. That Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth are gone. There's a king, but nobody can feel him. Interesting, giving the like matriarchal, patriarchal reign. Oh, so interesting when we talk about the contraction and expansion of the mother wound and the queen disappearing and the king's energy can't be felt. It's like, oh, there's just no queen anymore. Like, it's not there. It's really interesting. I want to talk about polyester clouds, silk clouds, cotton clouds, strange weather patterns, things we're seeing in the sky. I want to talk about how strong Atlantis has been lately. I want to talk about raising your standards now or nothing at all. And there's so many other things I'm sure it's going to come out. There's lots we're going to talk about. So let me know if any of this stuff has been in your field, because I really want to talk about it. Funnily enough, because I'm here. I feel like there's more stuff that I want to say about it, but I don't know what that is. But I was like almost not going to go live, and I'm like, there is so much here. Should this be more than one live stream? I was like, nah, we're just going to talk about it, and I'm just going to see what wants to come out, because there are a lot of things that I want to talk about with it. So let me just share this into my groups and my places, and we shall get started. Hello, welcome to my live stream. So yeah, lots of things, and I've just come out of our first psychic protection class this morning. That was pretty, not intense. It was fun, actually. It was very fun and very energizing. That's what it was. It was cool. All right, so let me share this on my feed. Thank you. Perfect. All right, so lots of things to talk about. New beginnings, fresh starts, alignment, and the new journey ahead. Yeah, let's talk about that. Thanks for bringing that up. Alignment. There's so many more things I could have put in the title. I've got like a list of notes here that I want to make sure I cover. Alignment and divine timing is a really strong, important factor that I want to like speak to and speak about on this, because it's almost like, and when it, okay, so this is what I mean. There's so many things connected here, right? So the total solar eclipse, I think it's on Monday. Oh, is it Monday or Tuesday my time? So Tuesday, Monday, right? Depending on where you are in the world. So alignment and divine timing and the mother wounding of contraction and expansion and the family lineage system. Like, I feel like there's so many people that are, yeah, there's a couple of different levels here. So breaking away from family system, generational ties, and or like moving away from, like, either physically or literally breaking old, outworn, outdated energetic ties that are past their use by date, right? This also applies to intimate relationship, right? There's a big sort of snapping and breaking of, like, it's almost like they just can't work together anymore, and there's sort of like this this is what it feels like. Okay, I'm just gonna do this. That's what it feels like. And so when we talk about the mother contraction or expansion wounding, like right now there is such a thing, and this is where divine timing and alignment and the mother wounding contraction. So contraction is like, you know, abandonment feeling, alone, like rejection, hurt, betrayal, you know, and expansion is like connection, fullness, love, support, you know, like lots of opportunities coming in, like feeling love, all of that sort of thing, right? Now, when we look at that on a scale, so I'm just going to talk what's dropping in, okay? I know I'll sound like I'm jumping, but I know you guys are right there with me. So with the Queen disappearing, she disappeared. I don't know, did she? She passed away, right? So I was speaking about this. So Queen Victoria, and then Tartaria, and then Atlantis, Lemuria, all that energy's been really strong. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that, and I always refer back to that energy around December 2018, January 2019, Atlantis was really strong. And what I meant by that is like the truth is surfacing. You cannot suppress the truth anymore. It is like surfacing, right? Like that's what I meant. It's like Atlantis is rising, Atlantis is rising. It's like, you know, like sure, the city might rise up from the ocean. Who knows what's going to happen? But more, it's like Christ consciousness, like Christ is going to come back. It's like, no, it's a consciousness. And this is where Atlantis rising is like, the truth cannot be suppressed anymore. Atlantis is rising, meaning the truth is surfacing. Now, if we look at like Tartaria or Atlantis or Lemuria, all of that stuff, it's a consciousness. Sure, it might have been physically destroyed and decimated in all these different areas and ways, but the truth of the consciousness of it, they cannot erase that. They can suppress it for a time, but they cannot erase it, and it's surfacing, right? So when we look at the Queen, because you know, when I was sort of going into this and receiving this, I was getting the message, it was almost like the Queen Victoria era was really when the decimation really, like the reign took over, if you may. Covered in goosebumps as I say this, truth bumps. And then and it got me thinking, I was like, oh yeah, and Queen Elizabeth, and I'm like, oh, there's just no one now. Now, what's so interesting is that there's been 2 queens in the reign, and I know that, you know, there's more leaders than that in the world, but there's a big sort of cast of net over of their reign, right, on the world. And if we look at Queen Elizabeth and Queen Victoria, and for the last however long have we been saying, oh, the patriarchal controlling government societies are decimating us. It's a masculine patriarchal bullshit. But hang on a sec, there's actually been queens in the reign? Oh, isn't that interesting? Like, isn't that so interesting? Everyone's been like, oh, it's very controlling, patriarchal bullshit, but actually the queens have been in power? Oh, and now so many people when I speak to, it's like, I know there's a king that's been sworn in, but it's like there hasn't, because energetically, you can't feel him. Well, I can't, and everyone I speak to about it, they're like, you know, we're talking about the same thing, hence why I want to have this conversation. And it's just interesting to me, yeah, about that, right? So how are you guys with this, right? So Shannon, yeah, so new beginnings, and this is the thing, right? So you said, Shannon, new beginnings, fresh starts, alignment, and the new journey ahead. And this is where when we're holding on to the old, when we're clinging on to the old, when we're trying to do old systems in the new world, it doesn't work. It'll send you down into a spiral. Like literally the old ways of doing things, you cannot physically do them. You can try and you can force and you can try all these things. It won't work. It'll send you down into a negative spiral. It lowers your vibration. Like, I know it's like a no-brainer when you really think about it. Well, of course, I'm not going to use my old system in my new way of being and when I'm stepping into in the world. But you'll notice that these patterns are creeping back in. And of course, like we're leading up to an eclipse. Like it's, you know, and I think, I don't know, is it Mars or retrograde, Mercury retrograde? Like, you know, there's other sort of factors at play there too. But on a level, when we step into a new vibration, when we step into a new caliber of being, those old patterns do, like, they sort of like flick back until you sort of like calibrate into that new frequency. And yeah, there are big changes happening, Tony. Yes, exactly right. And so this is the alignment. And, you know, when we're talking about Queen Victoria, Elizabeth, the matriarchal has actually been in reign, but everyone's like, oh, the patriarchal system. It's like, you know, it doesn't even make sense, you know, and whilst understanding masculine and feminine energies are important, at the same time, they just send us in this loop. It's like this dancing loop that keeps us stuck. Do you see that? Like, the best thing to do is just take your power back and own who the fuck you are and stand up and be that. And that's where your power is. That's where that's where your path is. Like, oh, masculine this or masculine that. Like I said, it's good to learn about it, and then it's like, yeah, and then you just like integrate and you come into that. Right? So, and then Kelly says, yes, especially with my new relationship, standing with standards, knowing my worth. Yeah, and so this is the thing, like in this new system, right? And when I say new system, I don't mean a new system of the world. I mean, like, technically maybe there is one landing, I guess, in a way, and all the shit going on behind the scenes, right? But beside from that, standing in this truth of your power and this new standard, it's like you cannot even try to do your old standards in this new frequency. Like, it will just send you into chaos. Like, tell me if you've experienced that. Like, you've even tried doing the old thing and you're like, oh my God, this isn't working. Like, in whatever way you're doing it. Like, maybe you're like, oh, maybe it will work and I'll just try it. And then you're just like, I don't know, it's like, no, you just can't even, right? And it's like, it's time to raise your standards now. And the faster you do that, the faster things will shift for you. Because why? It's alignment. It's alignment. And then there's this divine timing thing that's happening in. Like, yes, there's big changes. And a lot of people can feel this. And you know what? It's so interesting. They're like, something's happening. And there's big changes coming. And the world's going to come to an end. Or there's going to be a tsunami. Or this is going to happen. Or there's something massive happening in the world. And it's like, well, there always is. Right? There always is. However, there is like physical things happening too, right? The world is awakening. Like the past two years is almost like accelerated spiritual awakening and consciousness on the planet because everyone's been locked down and that whole thing. So it's like forced people to go in, right? And the strange weather and all the stuff, like you could say it's all the, you know, government bad stuff and whatever, right? And then also the other realms are becoming so distinct. And what I should have put in the title as well is, what was the other thing I wanted to say? Like the distinction, I didn't even write it down. The distinction of the separation of realities is so distinct, tangible. I don't know how to put it into a word that really separates how separate things are. Now, bear with me when I try and explain this, right? So in a sense of like, you'll be viewing society and you'll be viewing things and realizing how distinctly different people are or things are. So for example, like what I'm being shown is that you could walk through a city, right? Or we're just living in, you know, everyone's just in their own flow. Like we're all just like living together, but we're all very different. But what's so tangible and distinct lately, and I don't know why, but it's like, we're all still doing the same thing, so to speak, but the separation of how distinctly different everyone is with their different levels of consciousness and understanding is so distinct. It's like you can see these little bubbles of people walking around, they're just in these totally different worlds. Like you're like viewing like how different it is. Like in the past you would have just been like, oh yeah, like it wouldn't even been a conscious thought, but now it's like so consciously tangible and distinct and in your face. It's like, how is that so different? Like, how do they live like that? How do they think like that? Like, how is that? Do you know what I mean? And it's not a judgment. It's not like, oh, they shouldn't be doing that. It's just like, wow, it's so different or distinctly like tangible in the separation. Even though we're all together still doing the same thing, basically, it's so distinct. Now, I don't know what that is, but it's been coming through so strongly. And I feel like it's almost like, you know, when they say everything falls apart to come back together, but it's almost like a different level of awareness into how society is functioning. And it's almost like we're getting into our little posies or something. Like there's a separation happening, of course. And I personally wonder if it's got something to do with the, you know, the thing that's people have had. And so their energy and vibration is very different. And so now it's really, I guess, separating. Whereas before we were all just one collective consciousness. And I still feel we're a collective consciousness, but it's a whole, it's a whole nother level of consciousness. Exactly, Deborah, right? It's very distinct. It's very distinct, yeah? So I'm trusting that people can hear me because Vishnu is saying that she can't hear anything. I'm curious. Okay. Yeah, Amber totally resonates what I'm saying. Yes. So hi from California, Amber. Yeah, so Tony can't feel him either. The king, it's interesting, right? It's so interesting. Trying to have problem keeping them separate, my old feelings with the new me. Yeah, and it's so interesting, right? So we're distinctly watching the separation, or noticing the tangible separation of consciousness, of people, of realities. Like I say it, of realities. And I was speaking about this with my inner circle client, because we'd had this discussion when I first was showing it, probably about 2 years ago, and Spirit showed me how we're like spheres. So a while ago it was like, you know, we talk about timelines, and we've got all these timelines and parallel universes and timelines, and then the timelines changed to like dots, and it was like, oh, we're like dots now. So it's, instead of being on this timeline or this timeline, it's like we're on like this dot or this dot or this dot or this dot, right? And all these dots are merging, and then it was like, then they turned into spheres. And so now we're like these spheres, and now it's like the spheres are like really distinctly different in their little bubbles. Now, I don't know if that's just something that's happening for quote unquote people who are conscious like us, and I don't mean that as a judgment. Like, there's people who are mainstream who just don't do any of the spiritual stuff at all, and you know, it's totally fine. But you know, like, to describe it while I'm trying to explain this energetics, like, there's conscious people in the world and there's unconscious people, right? And I wonder if unconscious people are also noticing this really distinct difference, or whether they're just going through their own awakening and transformation in like seeing, like, you know, like feeling people so different. I don't know, it's kind of the same thing. But anyway, I don't really know where I'm going with that, but I feel like it's important to share, because there is something coming. You know, everyone can feel something big happening in the world, and there's freaking massive big things happening in the world on so many levels. Like, consciousness awakening is like one of the biggest ones that's causing all this stuff. There's big, you know, there's so many earthquakes happening. There's so many floods happening. There's so much rain happening, you know, and people would say, oh, well, that's, you know, the government doing that. And then there's other people that would say, well, you know, that's the other solar system, like, you know, converging and other planets coming over, and like we're going through this portal of like this solar system moving through stuff. Like, who's wrong or right? Like, ultimately, guys, nobody fucking knows, okay? But then all these other people say, oh, well, there's this evidence and this evidence, and there's like, well, both sides are going to show evidence, because when we believe something in reality, we will always find the tangible evidence to prove it, right? So I'm more of the case of like, show me all the evidence, put it all on the table, and oh, isn't it interesting? It's not like this or this or this or this or this. It's just like standing back and witnessing and observing it all, and just being openly curious to what you're being shown via the universe, via your people you connect with, people via your intuition, you know, because ultimately at the end of the day, nobody knows what's happening. Nope. Because everyone learned it from a book or a movie or a device or a platform of somebody's opinion of what they thought about this thing. And so it's good to just stay detached and just open and curious and like, oh, this is so interesting. And then notice what you're being shown in dreams and your intuition and all that sort of jazz, right? So Tony says, so many are in fear for your future. I can't feel the same fear as I'm feeling positive. Yes, and so interesting separation, right? Interesting separation. And then also with the, this is the contraction and expansion happening. Yeah, so the contraction and expansion of the mother wounding, which is so interesting because the queen's gone. Queens are gone. And it's like there's a king, but no one can feel the king. Now, whether it's just a timing of his energy getting stronger in the position over time, which, you know, if we look at the destruction that's happened in the world and the queen's reigns of the past couple of centuries, right? And it's like, everyone's like, oh, the patriarchal bullshit. It's like, actually, but the queen's been in reign, so it's a matriarchal. So if a king is in reign, does that mean it's going to slowly flip around? Oh, we would like that in a way. Like, is there going to be more love and kindness and openness, or, you know, who knows, right? And so this is a separation too, yeah? And is it a separation of consciousness, of planets, of people, of, you know, all sorts of things? Who knows? And that's the thing. It's like, well, there's all these amazing things happening and all these bad things happening. And it's kind of like, is it just that we're just more conscious of this shit now? Is it just that we have devices and like, you know, systems that measure earthquakes and measure all these things and cameras that show us all these things that we're just more aware of it now? Was it always happening, but we just weren't aware of it? I mean, like, things have definitely changed, let's be real. But you know? Nikki says it really feels like some people do not care about consciousness or growing in that way at all. Yeah, and do you know what? That's a strong reality of reality. There is people in the world that don't care about any of it. And are they ever going to wake up? Some will, some won't. Some will die to go into their grave not ever doing any of this stuff, ever. Some people will go to the grave not ever knowing any of the world stuff that's going on, ever. You know? And that's a part of the reality, yeah? Yes. Okay. Brendan says the deeper the level of consciousness, the deeper and more prevalent the truth. Yeah, and this is what I mean about Atlantis rising, Lemuria rising, Tartarian truths coming out. You know, it's Egyptian, it's that old world, ancient technology, consciousness that had fallen for whatever reason. That's what's surfacing. You can't suppress that forever. And you know what? This reality works in cycles. Dark light, night, day, unconscious, conscious, like everything's a cycle. Breath in, breath out, die, born, like it's always a flow. Yeah, it's always moving. Nothing is still. Even this hard desk is not still, baby. Laurie says, I can feel so much energy when I go out into the public that it makes me physically sick to my stomach. Do you know what? I went out to the shops yesterday and I felt sick being in there after a while too. And it was interesting to notice that because usually I'm all good. And like, I haven't been out for a while. Like, I've been in my country little filming flow zone, and we went out to the shops yesterday, and you know, I don't know if I was just hit a wall of tiredness or like, you know, because I'd only had 4 hours sleep the night before, and I was conscious of all of that, and then I'm like, oh, I have to drive all the way home now. Like, I don't know if I have my own stuff going on, but it's interesting because I hadn't felt that sick like that before. Like, just sick to my stomach, you know. And it's like, you know, I understand there's a lot of energy flying around, like there's a lot of, I don't know, we're going to call it AI nanotechnology in the air. There's actually things in the air. Oh, the polyester clouds and stuff. I just want to talk about that for a moment too. So Kara says, oh my God, just got on, but yes, I'm freaking out a little bit, but definitely learning a lot. Tony says a lot of truth on mainstream media now. That's a positive. Well, that's good, as long as they're not making it into a negative. Karen says possibility and all the things changing. Yes. Kelly said, I thought I'd never dream. Lately I'm seeing my dreams, but I can't remember them. Now I know I dream. I'm sure I will know in time. Do you know, okay, also I want to talk about the dream state for a minute because that's rapidly shifting and changing too. I just want to talk about the polyester clouds for a second. So like that stuff, the fake clouds, all the bad chemical cloud stuff. I know you guys, if you know, you know. I don't want to say too much. You know what I'm talking about, right? That stuff's definitely real. There's definitely other planet stuff real. And then there's definitely just normal cloud real. And I was talking to my friend. I was like, oh my God, there's been so many polyester clouds in the sky. And she's like, polyester clouds? What are you talking about? She's laughing. And I was like, she's like, I've never heard of that term before. And I'm like, yeah, that's because I made it up. And because I was looking at them one day and I was like, it's polyester. It's polyester. Like the chemical clouds, like you can tell, like, and you can trust your intuition on it too. Like you can really when you start watching the clouds, you can distinctly tell when it's a polyester cloud, a cotton cloud, or a silk cloud. Now I coined that term, if you may, because that's how I could describe what I was looking at. It's like the difference between a polyester sheet or a cotton sheet or a silk sheet. Like you could see it of what it would feel like. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, we're going to call them polyester clouds from now on. Anyway, that's just a thing. I don't know, a little side note. But I was like, when she laughed so hard about it, I was like, oh yeah, I just made it up. Because it's true. I'm like, well, it's kind of like so relevant to like, what do we wear or in our sleep or whatever. I don't know, it's kind of funny. Because when you look at them, you can really tell the difference. And even my intuition knows. I'm just like, man, it's not real. Like, you just know, you know? Anyway. Yeah, there's lots of pictures. Do you know that's also been strong? Okay, let's talk about Tartaria, Atlantis, Lemuria. the truth rising and the realms, and this is so connected to the dream state, okay? This is so connected to the dream state as well. Because if we can, okay, something big's coming, right? We don't know. Like, and just on that, I meant to say before, it seems like at this time, same time every year, around this time, all the way up until February, we all feel that something big's happening, something's coming. Like, we can feel that. And what I want to say to that is it feels like there's whether it's another solar system or another planet, or we're heading through a portal in the skies of oblivion or wherever we are, whatever. Between September, October, and February, there is a certain energy about Earth, about the cosmos. Like, it's a distinct frequency, and it's the same time every year. Now, you'll either feel it as a very high, really strong, powerful, that can sometimes feel like it's burning your nervous system, right? Like upgrades, solar flares, like all that sort of high energy stuff. And it also burns through any of things that's unconscious, that's buried, that's pulling you down and holding you back. So old traumas can come up. It can be a really hard time of life for a lot of people, like really hard negative emotions that you've buried can surface between now and February. So yeah, and so Nikki says, I feel this way every time of year. It's interesting, exactly. And so this is so important. Everything cycles, okay? Something big's coming. It's like, yeah, this energy is coming in from another realm or another dimension, or however the system works. Like, someone will say it's this or it's this. It's like, how do we actually fucking know? We don't, okay? But what we do know is we can trust ourselves with what we feel, with how we need to take care of ourselves, with the mentor support we need, with the saying no to relationships and other shit that's draining your energy and walk away for the final time, or whatever fucking pattern surfacing, or what, like, we can just know that it's the same every year. So this time I'm going to choose it to be different. This time I'm not going to put myself in situations that I'm going to regret later, that I already know is freaking already happening. Or, this time I'm going to take extra care of myself. This time I know that blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to do this differently. Like, that's how we support ourselves in it, right? So, okay, so what were we talking about? Oh, the realms. Okay, so this is so important. So, because you said, Jess, like, if you look at the clouds, you can see faces appear. So I want to say that I've been, and I don't know if just my psychic abilities are increasing or whatever the story is, whatever. Like, of course that's a thing, but at the same time, I'm like, is everybody seeing this? And I personally believe that it is, that something is accelerating. And this might sound crazy, but I've always felt for a long time, deep at my core, that one day the trees will get up and walk. One day the stones and everything will just come alive. And I've always felt that they're alive anyway, right? It's just like this consciousness, yeah? But also in that, I've been personally seeing more faces in stones, in trees, in clouds, in roads, in houses, in just everywhere. Now, like, I always see stuff, okay? I always see stuff. I don't know, it's normal to me, right? It's normal. But the excessive amount of faces or anything like that has been really strong, like rocks speak and all of that, like people take plant medicine for this shit, like, but this is normal reality for me and ancient blooded healers. And this is why people have my trust intuition, and this is why people are my clients, because this stuff is normal. We don't need that stuff to see that, whatever, right? So, and I feel that this time of year, this sort of stuff is accelerated, right? Because I do feel there's a merging of the realms, and that's why they've made it busy period of Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year celebration, Halloween. Like, they're really strong portals, and they can be very dark. Scorpio season, Halloween, etc. But if you look at the acceleration that happens and what are they quote unquote covering up, blah, 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 like, there's a really powerful energy. And if you know how to transmute that darkness and accelerate it for your light, really powerful, okay? And so this is where we have a choice in being able to transmute and use that energy, okay? So, okay, I'm just gonna leave that there for a minute. Just checking these comments. The dreams. Okay, let me finish this bit. I knew there was a bit. So the dream state, right, is very distinct lately as well. Like, dreams today are not what they were 10, 15 years ago, okay? The dream state has become so tangible in different realities there's almost a point where we're waking up wondering if we're in the correct reality. And I know that sounds absurd, but for some people, it is tangible. And I want to say this is an acceleration of not only your spiritual gift and your clairvoyance, because your clairvoyance is deeply connected to dream state, but also I don't know how to describe it. It's like the acceleration of your vibration and your purpose awakening, and the gift that you have it's so deep into the others. It's so deep in the realms. Like you're there, right? And this is deeply what's happening, and the dream state. And it's almost like, so it's so important right now for you that if you're waking up tired and you know you've been dreaming and you don't remember what you're dreaming, but you know you do a lot of work in your dreams and things are really struggling in your physical life right now, I urge you to call back your soul from all the different realms and dream state realms, not dream state, but they're just realms, but we enter them through the dream, so to speak, and call back all those parts of you from all of those timelines and all of those realms to be here, to accelerate this now. Really important that if you're feeling that, to do that, okay? The other part about the dream converging, the dream state converging with this reality is where I feel these spheres and the distinctive distinction of difference that we're feeling is the spheres really sort of bumping up against each other. So not even just with people, but the dream state space, right? And this current reality, and that's what's shifting and accelerating, is a merging of different realities and energies that have once been blocked from us are now coming in and converging. And so our power is increasing, hence consciousness awakening, etc., etc. But there's a definite shift in what reality is. Everybody can agree that reality is very different to what it was 5-10 years ago, and not just from a physical perspective, but an energetic perspective. In time is faster, we sleep differently, dream states differently, people are like connecting differently, and the separation is different. Yeah. Okay, so just checking these comments. Oh yeah, and so how that's connected to like the trees and the rocks and seeing faces and other pieces coming in, is that reality is waking up, that has been put to sleep, that has been hidden and suppressed, and that is just a projection of consciousness that has been suppressed. So as consciousness awakens, that's actually what's waking up, is our consciousness, which is bringing it back alive, which is so interesting when we talk about, you know, like we're trying to wake people up. It's like when we wake up, our consciousness is like water. I just got covered in goosebumps. Our consciousness is like water that flows and just wakes up everything. But it's actually an aspect of our slumbered consciousness. What the fuck's that word? Like it's been the sleep. We're waking up. Oh, there's a word for it though. You know what I'm trying to say. Do you guys get that? It's pretty deep. We just went pretty deep. Are you still with me? Even Malia agrees. She's like, that was too deep. Okay. I just taken your comments. Wait a day and everything changes and time flies by. Something major is happening. Maybe we will really cross the bridge to the 5D. And I want to say, no, I don't believe it's a bridge to the 5D. I'm like, this is what's waking up within us, within every person. Yeah, if that makes sense. Well, that's what I feel anyway. I mean, it could be a bridge, but you know, it's consciousness awakening inside the cellular body of humans. Yeah. Changing from old patterns, exactly. Yes, yes. Brendan says, whenever the cycle of energy shifts and I attract new people and events into my life, and old patterns tend to melt away at a rapid pace. Yes, they can flick back at times too, especially like sort of 6 to 12 months afterwards. There can be like certain like, oh, that was just the old thing, and it's just like another thread shifting out at like a 6-month point and a 9-month point and a 12-month point. Yeah. So Goddess Codes is on its last day. So if you want to work privately for one-on-one with me, Goddess Codes is 4 months, and this is the stabilizing frequency. So if you're ready to really raise your standards and work one-on-one with me in the Diamond Goddess Code frequency, send me a message, because we were talking about all of this stuff and the mother wounding or contraction, the expansion, and the new frequency that we're stabilizing in is Goddess Code. So send me a private message if you want more details to work one-on-one. So Kara says, yeah, Joy, you see faces all the time. Exactly, right? It's so powerful. It's like they just speak. They just speak. Like I even see them, this is so weird, like, you know, on the shower, like the glass in the shower, and there's like all the drips, like just on the glass. Like I just see them on the shower. So I was like, okay, like the water spirit. It's amazing. Kara says, we're not going to die or get eaten by the demons, shape-shifting, self-evolving critters. I'm like, have you been watching too much Netflix? No, I'm joking and not joking. You know, and the demons are the unconsciousness trying to wake up the consciousness. Is a big transformation that happens in that, yeah. Kelly says, I look at the clouds, take pics, I see pics, saw a bird this morning. Yeah, there's so much in there. There's so much, it's really alive at the moment. Like it's always there. But again, are we just more conscious of it? Like there's something that's activated lately, and yeah, it's really, really powerful. I've seen a lot of what I call the phoenix in the clouds. Yeah, see, big shifts, changing. Yes, the spheres, interesting. Nibiru, the top of the sphere. Yeah, interesting. Yes. They have no power. Exactly, right? And when we're in this state, and this is exactly what we're talking about, my psychic protection class this morning, which if you want to jump in for my psychic protection course, just comment protect below and I'll send you the link. You can still join us. We only did the first class today and we've got another 4 next week. We're going to do them all in a row. I was just like, we need to do them like daily. So we had the first activation this morning, and then we're doing 1 class each week, each day next week. So I'm excited about that. For what dropped in this morning was so powerful. And it's like, you know, it's like when you give your power away, anything and anything can come into you. When you really take your power back, this is where the consciousness awakens, right? So if you're seeing more, you're taking back more and more of your power. More and more consciousness awakens when you take back your power in this way. Yeah? All right, I'm just going to check that I covered everything in here. Yeah, something big is happening. It's exactly what I said. Raising your standards. And this is the thing. It's kind of like you're raising your standards. You're being in this space. You're being in that place, right? Of this, like, it's like you can't do the old anymore. Old patterns, old thinking, old choices, old ways of like things stopping you. No. It's just like you just can't anymore. And you have to stay here until it shifts. Yeah? And choosing it. Yes. So that's a mindset, and you don't want to affirm stuff like that, Jess, because when you said if I could afford it, I would, but I'm so poor lately. I'm like, well, you don't want to continue to affirm that, do you? Say, I'm consciously choosing to place my funds elsewhere at this time, because that's the truth. You don't want to be creating money problems when there ain't fucking any, right? All right. I'm going to love you and leave you guys. See you soon.